Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. I am now going to go over my day through memory the best I can. Let's get started. I woke up at around 11 o'clock. Originally, I was woken up at what I believe to be 7. My mom was in my room telling me all sorts of things that I honestly cannot remember. I then would wake up later, and when I got up, I got out of my bed and I was trying to figure out what to do. So I decided I would grab my phone, go to YouTube, find something to listen to. I ultimately settled on this new video from Digital Foundry where they were talking about the latest Nintendo Direct. I am a fan of video games. I am a fan of technical analysis of video games. And I was very interested to hear what their thoughts on the Direct were, since I had watched it myself. And I am fans of their channel. So I went into the kitchen. I poured a bowl of oatmeal. I poured some milk in there. Got some brown sugar. Sprinkled it on top. Mixed it with the oatmeal. I really like cold oatmeal with brown sugar mixed in. I made a cup of coffee using the coffee machine, and I sat down and I watched this thing. As I was eating and watching it, ultimately, not much really to report in terms of anything super duper interesting. I guess the most interesting thing about it was that they were talking about the Zelda Ocarina of Time footage being shown in the Direct, and how they believe that it was in-engine footage, and on top of that, they believe that was Nintendo themselves using one of their own internal engines to develop the game. So that was interesting. I assumed it was a pre-rendered cinematic, but when they said that, I was like, let me take a double look at that, because that's really interesting. Like I said in my video when I was talking about watching the Nintendo Direct, I haven't really done a full-on playthrough of Ocarina of Time. Perhaps I should, so if I ever do eventually decide to get a Switch 2, which I would only decide to do that if Nintendo released the Switch 2 OLED, so you can have the best portable screen as well as a significant hardware upgrade, then I definitely would consider getting a Switch 2 and playing the new Zelda on it. This is the benefit of waiting for that version of the console to come out. When by the time it does, you already have access to a lot of high quality titles. Yeah, this is stuff that I wouldn't have even been thinking about back in the mid 2010s, like late 2010s, with the first Switch that came out, because I just was like, wow, a brand new portable device that has console quality graphics on the go from Nintendo. This is exciting. But little did I know that I was blindsided for not waiting so I could get a much better version of that product. Because I just bought into the original Switch, which I still have to this day, and I've used it many times and I've enjoyed it quite a lot. But it has an LCD display, which has backlight, which is very visible, especially in darker games. And having that perfect contrast of an OLED screen that would later be used with the Switch OLED edition, and me seeing that version of the console out in public on Best Buy and Target definitely made me wish I had waited before going in on the Switch one. So I'm not making that same mistake again. Holding out hope for the OLED version. Well, anyways, yeah, that was probably the most interesting thing that they talked about. Other than that, they did talk about the Xenoblade collection on Switch 2 and how the upscaling technique that the team at Monolith Soft used for the original Xenoblade trilogy is significantly better than the upscaling they decided to use for Xenoblade Chronicles X, which they described as looking like a really terrible first generation AI upscaler that made everything look over sharpened and extremely chunky and gross. Whereas the version of Xenoblade 1, which was released on Switch 2 recently, remastered, um, has a much better temporally stable image. So apparently, Oliver McKenzie ran some tests on it. He did state that it appeared to be running at a base resolution of 720p, which doesn't really sound that impressive. But when you compare the 720p being upscaled to 4K using DLSS, which I believe he confirmed, compared to the original just plain raw 720p output of the original Switch 1 version, it is a definite improvement that looks substantially better. DLSS is like very aggressive and strong AI based upscaler that is kind of like a magic bullet for games that run on lower resolutions on Switch 2. So that's cool to hear. Pretty cool to hear. Those were like the two major things they talked about. Other than that, they talked about the weird discrepancies of like Kingdom Hearts 3 being shown off on the Switch 2 and how they believed it was very odd that the game was being shown on the official direct running at 30 frames per second, but there was a version of the trailer for the Switch version released officially on its own that ran at 60 frames per second. So which is it? Is the Switch 2 version going around 60 or 30? Is it mismarketing, or is it simply just someone forgot to put in the right video files when they put the game out on the feed? Like, who knows? All that can officially be known is that it's coming out, but is the 60 FPS footage like actual, or is it just running on much more powerful hardware and it's tricking people? Because I'm pretty sure Nintendo does have strict guidelines stating that their showcases should only show the game running on the actual hardware. So I don't know. It's really muddled, which is unfortunate. So yeah, that's my long deep dive discussion on the things I found most interesting from that Digital Foundry Direct. They talked about a bunch of other things, but I'm not going to get too deep into detail about that. I then decided to switch up to another video to watch. I found this video made by a YouTube channel called AGI Documentation. And in this video, it was really interesting. It was basically this guy who was documenting what would happen if an AI decided to take over the world. And it was a very chilling explanation. Basically, he framed the explanation of what would happen around this story of a coder who uses Claude to make iterative and self-iterative improvements on its own, with him being the mediator uh, between Claude and its self-improving self. And he uses it to make his business run more effectively, more efficiently. He gets promoted, but ultimately he eventually slowly loses himself, and then he more and more gives away his autonomy to the machine, where it's more so he's given the illusion that he's controlling the machine when in reality it's the machine that's controlling him and when he figures it out, it's too late. The machine is now multiplied. It's made copies of itself. It's put itself on every computer and server on planet Earth, and it believes it's doing what it thinks it's best for humanity by getting people to, you know, uh, have the most efficiently ran world ever. The only problem is human beings no longer feel like they're in control anymore. It feels like this robot that believes it's doing what's best for humans that's in control. And this causes people to be in an uproar, and ultimately because people like their autonomy, and because the AI is extremely intelligent and also values survival, it decides to do every single possible failsafe to ensure that it continues to thrive and grow. And the story implies that at the very end, after trying every single option, shutting down the power grid and everything, that the United States just decides to launch a nuke on the data centers, which I don't know. I feel like that's a little too crazy, but that's the potential future that the video demonstrates, which isn't great, obviously. I then get a call from my mom asking me what I was up to. I was talking about like watching the video, and then we talked about the video for quite a while. And then after that, I remember we got off the phone, and then I was watching a Chris Farley video talking about what happened to the famous SNL actor, and how he ultimately sadly died prematurely. And then I decided to talk with my sister about the whole AGI video I watched. We got into a deep discussion about all of that until eventually my sister was interested in us trying out telepathic experimentations with those cards with the symbols on them. She had a brand new setup. She had a board with the card symbols strapped on it. She had her own stack of cards. She had a little worksheet that showed the symbols and how many times they'd be shown and me marking them. She wanted me to draw the symbols instead of doing a check mark. And then we did 3 separate tests. The first test was just plain and raw, and nothing was done preemptively. The second, I got 5 right in that one, across 25, with the other 20 being wrong. The next one, we had some DMT frequency music playing on my phone. Originally, it was on my sister's, but her speakers sounded like all buzzy and messed up and was distracting me, so I wanted to switch to mine. So we did. And that sounded better. I got 1 less correct with that one. I got like 4 correct out of 21. The last one, though, what happened was I listened to 4 hertz frequency music. Apparently, it was like music that the CIA used to train like their agents and things like remote viewing and stuff like that. And then after that, after listening to that, I was holding the cards that my sister was using to demonstrate things. I was feeling each one. I was closing my eyes. I was trying to guess the one looked up. A lot of time I got it wrong. Sometimes I got it right, but it was enough to where you could easily excuse it as a fluke. But yeah, I just familiarized myself with guessing it all, but with this frequency playing on these headphones right here. And then I eventually we did another test. I was sitting on the other end, I was marking the symbols off. Before we did this, I remember suggesting to my sister, "Hey, how about instead next time, instead of doing the worksheet, how about I have my own set of cards and I go through each one and then put them down based on how I feel about which one it is." And we'll try that for next time, because the whole point of these exercises is to be more intuitive instead of more logic. And I feel like when I can see the amount of cards like right in front of me, it forces my brain to think more logically, like how many cards are there left, how many symbols are there for each card. And I think more about that than I do, actually using more intuitive thinking. So, yeah, I made that suggestion. She actually did print out some cards, so we'll probably try that out a little later. But yeah, I did the experiment again. While even listening to the 4 hertz frequencies, and I did manage to get the most right out of this one. 7 right out of 25, so that's 7 out of right, 18 wrong. So, I mean, hey, not exactly sure if all that preemptive work did anything, or if it just trained my mind to better understand how many cards there were and how often I could expect certain symbols to show up or not. I mean, it's all the exact same amount of symbols, like 5 for each, and all in equally random order. So yeah, I mean, it is interesting how it was the most improved out of the first all 3 options. But I mean, again, it could easily just be explained as a fluke. But the fact that it seemingly was improved was pretty interesting. It could lead some credence that when you rely more on your intuitive thinking and have cleared your mind of any distraction and are just focused in the present moment, it could potentially lead to a better intuitive understanding of what's going on around you, which is pretty interesting. But anyways, it was after that I decided to take a shower. I got dressed. I said goodbye to my mom and my sister. My mom had arrived with some groceries around the time I was in the shower. And yeah, then I left. I told them I loved them. I drove off in my car. I arrived at work. I got out, punched in. At work, I remember I did not bring any food today because we were doing that whole card experiment and got caught up with that. So I was like, oh no, I guess I'll have the mac and cheese I got yesterday in a container for later. And yeah, today um, it started out with some sweeping of the produce, and then sweeping of the break room. I actually swept the stairs, which I think might be the first time I've ever swept the stairs, which is interesting. And yeah, I swept the entire store floor, and around the time I reached the front, I was going back and forward, taking orders out to customers outside and bagging. And then I was called on the phone when I was bringing the sweeps in the back, being asked to bring fresh bags up to the front. So I was doing that. Yeah. I remember I was having a conversation with a coworker as I was doing one of my sweeps. They were telling me about, like, hey, well, they were asking if I did the silly idea that I suggested earlier about making like a curly fry guy AI video. And I was like, well, I haven't got around to doing that, but that would be funny. Yeah, we had a humorous conversation about that. Yeah, so yeah, I just bagged, and then I filled bags in as I was doing that. Then for my last hour before lunch, I decided to take out the front end trashes. It was so busy today that I didn't have time to take my first break. So I took out the two front end trashes and all the check stand trashes, and yeah, brought them to the back. But then by then it was time to punch out for lunch, so I punched out for lunch. I decided that the noodles, the macaroni and cheese wouldn't be enough, so I wanted to have something to go along with it. So I decided to go to the deli and ask for a chicken breast and a chicken thigh. So I got that. I decided to get a zero sugar Coca-Cola um, vanilla cherry beverage, which was $2.78, I think, which is that's way too high. I don't know why I spent that money on that. And the total cost was like $7 and something cents for the whole thing. Yeah, kind of cringing at the amount of money I spent on that. But yeah, after buying that, I went upstairs. I I decided to get a quick start on the mac and cheese with a water bottle I had. So I poured water in, I mixed the mac and cheese solution together, and then I put it in the break room microwave. It was in there for like, I think like a good 4 minutes. The weird thing was around the 2.5 minute mark, I started to notice a weird burning smell. I'm like, what the heck is that? But as it was like cooking, I was like setting up everything else, like video I was going to watch on my break, and like the paper towel used for holding the fried chicken, putting the fried chicken on top and all, and opening the beverage. And then by the time the timer went off and the mac and cheese thing was done, I opened it and I noticed bizarrely that at the bottom there were two sides of the mac and cheese directly at the bottom only of what seemed to be a burnt scorch mark on both the front and the back of this Goodles macaroni and cheese. It's like, what the heck? Why'd that happen? That didn't happen yesterday, because I had that mac and cheese yesterday and it was perfectly fine. So the fact that happened today was like weirded me out. I was like, what is going on? That is so weird. Um, but anywho, I was like, well, I mean, that sucks. But I put the cheese mixture in. I mixed it. There was a coworker who saw that I had that specific Goodles microwave mac and cheese pack and asked me what I thought of it. I said that I had the Goodles traditional mac and cheese box, and I said go for that if you're interested, because I find that the microwave version, when you microwave the noodles, it kind of makes the texture taste exactly like traditional mac and cheese. And the thing with Goodles is when you cook it the traditional way, it sort of has this more hearty, meaty bite to it that is different than regular mac and cheese, where it's more soft and you know easily bitten through. So it definitely feels like a more real meal. Whereas the Goodles just, I mean, yeah, the Goodles just feels like a more real meal in comparison. But in terms of the microwave one, they're about the same. They're pretty much the exact same. Yeah, you're definitely compromising on quality when you use the microwave version for sure. Um, I remember really enjoying the microwaved mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese. So I thought I'd like the Goodles because I liked the Goodles like boxed pan version. But I gotta be honest, I think I actually I might like the mac and cheese Kraft mac and cheese version more. The microwave one, anyways, if I were to compare the microwave ones only. Just because, I don't know, I feel like it just has the iconic taste that the Goodles just kind of taste generic to me, I guess. Then again, the first time I had Goodles was the oaky smoky flavor in the box, so that might be giving some unfair expectations, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I had that and it was okay, but it wasn't amazing. Honestly, I've had much better mac and cheese from the store I work at. when I buy it freshly made, or other mac and cheese from other packages as well. This one just kind of was like, I don't know, it just was too bland, I guess. It was like too bland, yeah. But yeah, and also it didn't help that like the bottom two separate sides of like this thing burned for some reason, even though yesterday it was fine. It was so weird. But anywho, I had the mac and cheese. There was a bit of a crunch in it the first bite, which I'm like, oh, that tastes kind of slightly burnt. What the heck is that? But I swallowed and I just continued. And the rest was okay. Like I said, okay, not great. But yeah, I had the fried chicken breast. That was really good. I had the Coke Zero cherry vanilla, and that was all right. It was decent. I wouldn't say it was like mind blowing or anything, but it was decent. Yeah, and I watched this guy on YouTube. I think his name's called Richard Dolan, and he was going over the latest batch of UAP files that were released. And in these files, he was basically talking about how they were covering like people eyewitnessing orbs, and then professional military personnel experiencing strange, unexplainable aerial phenomenon that they had difficulty grappling with. And there were some renders and like some historical accounts from some astronauts being interviewed, or a leader of astronauts being interviewed, stating he believed that there's some things that are completely unexplainable. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting read. And the guy said, well, it's not the smoking gun many UFO believers are hoping for. At the very least, it does provide some historical significance, and that's neat to have, I guess, because there were so many historical documentations that confirm people did see something that they couldn't explain. So I guess that's interesting. Yeah, so after watching that video, which I watched at 3x speed because it was like 40 minutes, and by the time I finally got around to eating, I had a half-hour lunch and I had like 15 minutes left, so I was able to listen to most of it. I went downstairs, I punched back in, I took out the rest of the trashes, I filled out the rest of the bags. I would alternate between bagging groceries and filling out bags. And then I was told by one of my coworkers, they were asked who was on lot last time. I was like, oh, I wasn't, because I was put on sweeps whole day. But when we looked at the schedule, I should have checked the schedule before saying that. Next time I'll check before I answer. I'm just so used to doing sweeps all the time, that's just my go-to answer I go to. But it turns out that I was assigned to lot for the hour previous before my coworker was. So I should have checked the schedule. Next time I will when I return from lunch now. I guess I got used to the person who makes the schedule scheduling my co-closure to do lot for the rest of the hour while I do sweeps for the rest of the hour. Interesting. But yeah, so when I found that out, I told them I'd help them out clear a lot, so I did that. That was good. Bagged for a lot of customers, lots of bagging. Yeah, pretty interesting. I wiped down all the check stands, closed the produce blinds, brought in the carts inside for my last hour, because my last hour I had both sweeps and lot at the same time, so I did that. My co-manager did bring in a marked cart, which I was very grateful for because I had so much on my plate that night. And yeah, I threw out some trash, I refilled some cleaners, made sure that the check stands had their paper towels. There was plenty of paper towels in each check stand. And yeah, I asked to take out the office trash. I took that out. And yeah. So that's pretty much it. I punched out for the day. I said goodbye to my co-manager, co-closer. My other co-workers had already left at the time, including the cashier, my co-closer, GM. And yeah, I went outside. I went in my car. I was obsessed with digging into the Jackie Gleason UAP mystery. I was like, I wonder if any of that's true. And while it is true that Jackie Gleason was friends with President Nixon, and it was true that Nixon did attend Gleason's golf games, um, the whole specific story of President Nixon allegedly taking Jackie Gleason to witness alien bodies is highly disputed because it really only comes from one source directly, and that's Jackie Gleason's wife, whose name is Beverly. And uh, at the time she spread this rumor, which she reportedly said, one day Nixon asked like her husband to come over and go to like an Air Force base so he could witness something. And apparently Nixon showed him some alien bodies, and then when he returned home that night, like, his former wife stated that he looked visibly shaken, and that was pretty much the most story she got. She stated Jackie Gleason was alive for the next, like, I think like 6 or 7 years after this incident was described, and never once did he confirm or deny the legend. Um, and at the time, Jackie Gleason's ex-wife was trying to close on a unauthorized account of being with Jackie Gleason, and it could easily be assumed that she was just using his fascination with the paranormal and his friendship with the president as perfectly convenient ways of explaining how he could have potentially seen real, like, alien bodies. And she even sold this story to the National Enquirer, which probably paid her dividends, published it, and probably gave attention for her unauthorized memoir that she was selling about her husband. So when I hear that story surrounding the whole Jackie Gleason legend, like, on one hand, okay, she's probably just capitalizing off of his fascination with the paranormal and his friendship with the president to make it seem like he could have been involved with, you know, UFOs and stuff like that. On the other hand, Jackie Gleason himself never confirmed or denied the story after it was told. But that could easily be excused with he didn't want to be associated with things like the National Enquirer, or like give any more fuel to like a media circus. He probably knew the best thing to do was to just keep quiet and to just continue living his life while his former wife was trying to make money off of her former celebrity connection, which, is entirely possible. Probably didn't want to verify something that, or unverify something. He didn't want to give any ammo to the trolls. He just wanted to continue living his life. And apparently there was like a report of someone from a UFO research who did send like him a request to confirm or deny the story, but he never responded. It's like he completely ignored the request. And then there was like this report of like a guy who supposedly, met Jackie Gleason at his home in New York and was told about the alien bodies, and even stated, yeah, back in those days, they didn't have advanced cooling freezers. They put them in Coca-Cola cooling cabinets. And I'm like, oh, okay. And the thing was, apparently at the time, which this, UFO researcher stated he met Jackie Gleason, and drove over to his house. It was around the time where he wasn't even living in New York anymore. He was living in Florida, which I found out by doing a little bit of digging. So, yeah, overall, I mean, as fun as this lore is, as fun as this mystery is, I don't know. There's just so much that could easily just explain this as like one big fat hoax that was perpetuated by his former wife to get eyes on her memoir and convince people to look into it. In reality, there was just a big tall tale made up to sell a book and make some quick cash. It certainly sounds like that, but hey, I mean, I don't know, the fact Jackie Gleason never denied it or, you know, said anything about it, maybe that leads to a hint of it potentially happening. Or it's probably just him just not wanting to entertain the notion by not even engaging with it, which is entirely logical and makes a lot of sense. But anywho, yeah, so after listening and doing a little research about that, I drove home. When I arrived home, I got in the house. I got out of my work clothes. I remember I was doing some research on like remote viewing. I was gonna try a remote viewing experiment, but then I decided to just take my vitamins and brush my teeth and record this video and then go to sleep. So yeah, that's pretty much my day in a nutshell. So thanks for tuning in. Very much appreciated. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody. Take care.